right, strap yourselves in because we are going deep today, deep into one of the most, well, I guess you could say legendary mysteries in American history. D.B. Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
Skyjacker, ransom, that crazy parachute escape. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But we're not just skimming the surface here.
Right.
We've got, we managed to get our hands on the FBI files, the actual evidence, and we are going to unpack all of it.
Well, it's really incredible how this case, even after 50 years, can still grab everyone's attention. D.B. Cooper, I mean, he wasn't just some, a criminal. He's this legend, right?
Yeah.
Shrouded in mystery, wearing a cheap suit and that black tie.
Absolutely. So let's set the scene. November 24th, 1971, Portland International Airport. This totally average-looking dude walks in, calls himself Dan Cooper, has a brown briefcase, a one-way ticket to Seattle that he paid for with cash.
Interesting.
And a plan that's about to, well, make him a household name.
Now, the thing that really stands out is how carefully he planned everything. He boards the flight, acts totally normal, orders bourbon and soda, then boom, he slips the stewardess a note. Chills,
Yeah.
right? And even reading it now, all these years later, it still sends shivers down your spine. I have a bomb. Just like that.
Wow. And he even showed her the inside of his briefcase, wires and all. I mean, just think about how bold that is.
Bold.
He didn't want $1 million or a fancy getaway car. Nope. This guy wanted 4 parachutes and $200,000, all in 20s.
Wow.
This wasn't some desperate act, you know what I mean? It felt like it was all calculated, like he was challenging the whole system.
It's true. And the authorities had no choice. I mean, what were they going to do? They had to play along, right? So they negotiated, landed the plane in Seattle, swapped the passengers for the ransom and those parachutes.
Right.
But Cooper, he wasn't done yet.
Oh, man.
He kept some of the crew on board, told the pilots, Mexico City, that's where we're going.
Wait, so with all those people watching, the FBI, closing in on him, how on earth did he get away? That's where it gets really interesting.
This is where it gets wild. Somewhere between Seattle and Reno, under the cover of darkness, this crazy rainstorm going on, Cooper jumped. He leapt into the unknown, took that money, and vanished. Poof.
Gone.
Just like that. The plane landed safe, the crew, thank goodness they were okay, but Cooper, gone. Vanished. The FBI, you can imagine, baffled, probably a little embarrassed, launched this massive investigation. They called it NORJAC, short for Northwest Hijacking.
Okay.
Hundreds of agents, tons of interviews. They even, took the plane apart looking for clues.
Hundreds of agents they must have talked to, everyone, right? Did they have any clue where to even start?
Well, try to imagine this, right? The FBI's got this war room, walls plastered with pictures, maps, theories everywhere, right? They were desperate to figure this guy out. Hundreds of leads, some, believable, some completely out there. Yeah. It was their job to sort through it all, the truth from the fiction. And the first thing they did, well, they wanted to nail down a timeline, use those witness statements, radar data, anything to piece together Cooper's moves before the hijacking.
It's almost like trying to do a puzzle, but half the pieces are missing. But they had to have something to go on, right? Fingerprints, maybe a sketch of the guy. It wasn't like he was using, outdated technology or anything.
Yeah. There were definitely some clues, some interesting ones. For one thing, Cooper wasn't exactly, a super meticulous criminal mastermind. He left something behind.
What, like his wallet?
Not quite. His tie. A black JCPenney clip-on tie. Left it right there on the plane.
Huh. Seems like a small detail.
Yeah, but a detail that gave the FBI something to work with. A DNA sample.
Hold on. They had his DNA. Yeah. That's huge.
Big lead, definitely. But remember, this was the 70s. DNA technology, it was just getting started. Nice. So they had to stick with the old ways. Fingerprints, handwriting analysis, hoping for a match in their files.
Okay, so they've got the tie, they've got his DNA. What else did they find?
Well, there was the canvas bag, one of the parachutes, the bag it came in. Found it tossed near where they think he jumped. And then get this, 1980. This kid, playing by the Columbia River, makes a crazy discovery. A rotting package full of cash. $500 time, part of the ransom money.
Whoa. 9 years later, some of the ransom money just washes up. That's unbelievable. Did that finally break the case wide open?
Well, it definitely added more questions than answers. The bills were decomposed, but the serial numbers matched the ransom. People started wondering, did Cooper stash some of the cash before jumping? Did it fall out during the jump? Or, well, this is a little darker, but did it mean he didn't make it or washed ashore after? Well,
So they had DNA, the money, tons of leads, And still they couldn't find D.B. Cooper.
That's the frustrating part. The brilliance of this case, I guess you could say. They chased down hundreds of leads, some, more promising than others. There was even this guy, Richard McCoy. He pulled a very similar hijacking just a few months after Cooper. Parachutes, ransom, the whole bit. Seemed like they had him.
So they finally caught him.
Yeah.
Mystery solved, right?
Not exactly. McCoy's hijacking, it was similar, sure, but witnesses, their descriptions didn't match up. And after digging deeper, they ruled him out. So the D.B. Cooper mystery, still wide open.
It's like the more they looked, the less they knew. No wonder people are still talking about this.
Right. I mean, it's got everything, right? A crazy heist, a clever escape, and the chance that maybe he got away with it all. It's like we're drawn to these stories about, like, outlaws who outsmart the system,
Yeah. And let's be real. The media had a field day with this.
Mm-hmm.
Newspapers, they went crazy. His face, or at least that blurry sketch they had, it was everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Books, documentaries, even Hollywood got in on the action.
Definitely. The media, they turned him into this, like, folk hero, the symbol of rebellion, sticking it to the man. And as time went on, and the mystery just kept getting bigger, the legend, it just grew,
And speaking of legends, let's talk about those theories. I mean, there's so many. Some think he was a pro skydiver. Others say just some lucky amateur. I even saw somewhere that someone thinks he was like a disgruntled airline employee.
Yeah.
Insider knowledge,
Yeah, the theories are definitely part of the fun. Some are more believable than others, of course.
Right.
Some think he had someone on the ground, waiting to help him disappear. Others believe he stashed the rest of that money somewhere, living off the grid, maybe in a cabin up in the Pacific Northwest. Who knows?
Okay, I got to admit, I kind of like the image of him in a cabin, surrounded by trees, with his secret stash of cash, like straight out of a movie.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely got that romantic feel to it. And you know what? It could be true. We forget this was a different time. No cameras everywhere, no facial recognition, no internet tracking your every move. It was, disappearing was a lot easier back then.
That's true. And speaking of things that are kind of strange, even the name D.B. Cooper, it's like part of the mystery itself. He never actually called himself that on the plane.
It's amazing how a little mistake can become like, official.
Yeah.
They even talked to a guy with those initials, totally unrelated to the hijacking, but the name, D.B. Cooper, it's stuck, forever linked to this case.
It makes you wonder, like, if the media hadn't run with that name, would we even be talking about this today? Would it have, captured everyone's attention in the same way?
It's hard to say. It does have a certain ring to it, doesn't it, D.B. Cooper? Memorable, kitschy. But even without the name, the story itself, it's pretty amazing, right? A guy who basically outfoxed everyone, vanished without a trace.
Yeah. And speaking of outfoxing everyone, what about the FBI and their investigation? I mean, they must have really thrown everything they had at this, right?
Oh, absolutely. Fingerprints, handwriting. They even used, get this, psycholinguistics.
Psycholinguistics? What is that?
Analyzing his note, how he talked, to try and figure out his personality.
Oh, wow. And what did they find out?
Well, they got a sense of him. This guy was smart, methodical, not the type to panic. His words, the way he acted, even what he asked for, it all suggested, someone who'd planned this very, very carefully. He didn't ask for some crazy amount of money. He knew what kind of parachutes he wanted, even seemed to, know his way around a plane.
That's a good point. It wasn't just about the cash, was it? It was like he wanted to, be in control, maybe prove something.
Right. And the FBI, they were scrambling, trying to figure out his game. And as time went on, the leads, they dried up. The FBI started using even more, I guess you could say, advanced stuff.
Like what?
Early DNA testing on that tide didn't get them too far. Geographic profiling, using maps, wind patterns, all that, to figure out where he might have landed.
Wow. They really went all out, didn't they? And still, nothing.
For all that evidence, all those leads, the biggest piece was missing. D.B. Cooper himself. Without him, it was, trying to solve a puzzle with the most important piece missing.
It makes you think, sometimes even with all the, fancy technology and all that, some mysteries, they just stay mysteries.
It's true. And in a way, that's what makes the D.B. Cooper case so, fascinating. It doesn't have easy answers. It's like it makes us rethink what we think we know about crime and punishment, about technology, about if we can ever really understand the past,
Yeah. It makes you think about him, like, what if he did survive? What kind of life did he have after that night? Did he ever regret it? Did keeping this secret, did it eat him up inside? Or maybe he made a new life for himself, left D.B. Cooper behind, like shedding his skin,
It's the question, right? The one that's haunted investigators and everyone who's obsessed with this case for decades. The FBI, they officially closed it in 2016, but the mystery, it's still alive. The idea that he might be out there, it keeps people looking, researching, coming up with new theories.
I get it. It's like this giant puzzle with a few pieces missing. You just know there's a solution somewhere just waiting to be found.
Yeah.
What about you? You've studied this case so much. Is there anything that, I don't know, jumps out at you, something maybe other people have missed?
That's a good question. The thing that I find really interesting is, well, it's the difference between how people think of D.B. Cooper and the reality. He's often seen as this, like, Robin Hood character, this charming rogue who, stuck it to the man.
Yeah, he's almost a folk hero to some people.
Exactly. But we can't forget, he hijacked a plane, terrorized people, put lives at risk. No matter why he did it or if he survived, we have to remember that this was serious.
That's an important point. It's easy to get caught up in the, I don't know, the romanticism of it all, the daring escape, the unsolved mystery. But this was a crime.
Yeah. And that's something to think about as we go deeper into this. It's not just about solving a puzzle. It's about trying to understand people, why they do the things they do, why we're drawn to risk, to these big mysteries.
Well said. And what's also interesting? Think about how this changed airport security. Before D.B. Cooper, you could just walk onto a plane, no problem.
It's true. This case, it was a wake-up call. It showed how vulnerable airports were, and it's why we have metal detectors, baggage screening, all those strict rules at the airport today.
Wow, one guy. And he changed how we travel today. That's a legacy that goes way beyond the money, beyond all the unanswered questions.
And it shows that even when things seem impossible, human ingenuity, that determination, it can win. Whether it's D.B. Cooper outsmarting the FBI or the authorities coming up with new ways to stop hijackings, this case shows how we can adapt, how we can be, brilliant.
So we've talked about the hijacking, the investigation, the evidence, all those theories, the cultural impact. But there's one question that just keeps popping up. Did D.B. Cooper survive that jump?
The million-dollar question. And unfortunately, there's no easy answer. We can look at everything, the plane, the altitude, the weather, what was below him. We can talk to experts about parachuting, survival, all that. But in the end, it's all just, educated guesses.
So break it down for us. What are the odds? Was it even possible for him to, survive a jump like that?
Okay, let's look at the facts. Night jump in a crazy rainstorm over rough terrain. He was wearing a suit and loafers. Not exactly skydiving gear, right? And while he did ask for parachutes, we don't know if he even knew how to use them. In fact, one of the parachutes they gave him, it was a dummy chute, like the kind they use for training. It wouldn't even open.
Uh-oh. That doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't. But there's something that might have helped him. The Boeing 727, it had this aft air stair, the special door in the back that let him jump without getting, blown back into the plane. So that gave him a better chance of clearing the plane and not getting hurt.
So the air stair was good for him. But what about where he landed? Wasn't it like a big forest?
Yeah, it was. They think he jumped over this dense forest in southwest Washington. Rugged terrain, steep hills, thick trees, Landing safely there, even for a pro, would have been almost impossible.
So are we saying it's impossible?
Not impossible, but, really, really unlikely. If he did survive, it would depend on a lot of things. Exactly where he landed, if he got hurt, how much he knew about the wilderness, and just plain luck.
So it's a long shot, but not totally out of the question.
Exactly. And that's why this story, it keeps going. No body, no proof of what happened to him, just the possibility that D.B. Cooper is out there somewhere living with a new name, a new life. It keeps us guessing.
You know what? Part of me hopes he made it. The idea that he, pulled this off, outsmarted everyone, lived to tell a tale, it's a great story, even if it is a little, romanticized.
I get it. The idea of the ultimate escape, the guy who just disappeared, it's appealing. But even if we never know for sure what happened to him, his story, it teaches us something. About crime, about security, about the power of a good mystery.
Totally. It reminds us that sometimes the best stories are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers. And that's what we're going to talk about in the last part of our deep dive. We're going to explore the what-ifs. What if D.B. Cooper is still out there? What would his life look like? What would his story be? Stick around. Things are going to get really interesting. Welcome back. So we've gone through the evidence, we've looked at all the theories, and now we're going to have some fun. What if D.B. Cooper is still out there?
Yeah.
Living a secret life,
Yeah.
What would that even look like?
It's a wild thought, isn't it? Imagine this guy living under a fake name, maybe in some quiet town, just blending in, acting like nothing ever happened.
Right. But he'd have to be so careful, always looking over his shoulder, carrying that secret around.
Exactly. All those years, wouldn't he want to tell someone, share his story, get it off his chest?
You think so, right?
But then again, the longer he keeps quiet, the bigger the legend gets.
True. Silence, it can be powerful.
And think about this. If he is still alive, he'd be pretty old by now. What's it like to live with that, knowing you pulled off one of the craziest stunts ever and got away with it?
Wow. That would take a special kind of person. Someone who's, I don't know, resourceful, sneaky, good at keeping secrets. And what about the money? Did he spend it all? Invest it? Or is it hidden away somewhere, a constant reminder of what he did?
That's the question, isn't it? Only D.B. Cooper knows the answer. But it adds to the mystery, doesn't it? The idea that somewhere a fortune is just sitting there waiting to be found.
I can already picture people, those amateur detectives with
Mm.
their maps and clues trying to find Cooper's loot. It's like a real-life treasure hunt. And it makes you wonder, if he could tell his story, what would he say? Would he regret it all? Be proud of what he did? Or just, relieved that he got away?
It's interesting to think about, right? What it does to your mind keeping a secret like that for so long. Maybe he's found a way to, I don't know, justify it. Or maybe he's tortured by guilt, living in fear, always looking over his shoulder.
Like a scene from a movie.
Yeah.
And speaking of movies, it's kind of crazy how D.B. Cooper has become this, pop culture icon. Books, documentaries, even movies about him. Why do you think his story still, grabs us after all this time?
I think it's because we love the unknown. The idea of someone who, breaks the rules, defies authority, and gets away with it. Cooper's story, it's like, well, it's a blank slate, we can imagine whatever we want.
Yeah. And, I mean, you got to admit, the picture of him in a suit, jumping out of a plane with a bag of money, it's just cool, right?
Oh, yeah, it's an image that sticks with you. And as long as the mystery's unsolved, that image, it'll keep us fascinated.
So why should we care about this? A mystery that happened, forever ago.
Well, it shows us how powerful a good story can be. It makes us question things, makes us want to learn more, to keep searching for the truth, even when it's hard to find.
And it shows us that sometimes the journey is just as important as the ending. In this case, the journey, it's taken us through FBI files, airport security, even psychology.
And even though we have more questions than answers, I think we understand the world a little better now and how complicated people can be.
So keep searching, keep digging. There's tons of information out there, books, articles, documentaries, websites, all about this case. Maybe you'll find something everyone else missed. Maybe you'll be the one to finally solve it.
And even if you don't, the search itself, it's worth it. It's a chance to, think critically, be curious, and get lost in one of the most interesting mysteries out there.
The mystery might be cold, but the adventure, it's still hot. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of D.B. Cooper. Keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and who knows, maybe someday we'll finally get the answers we're looking for.